scotch, bourbon, and rye. If they like a bottle, they'll tell you why.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Trenny and C. I'm Trenny. This is C. We are live, or what? We're on location.
On location.
On location, beautiful Shawnigan Lake. Got the Shawnigan Hills behind us. We got the sun beating down.
Yeah, it's actually a perfect Canadian backdrop for a perfect Canadian video.
Yeah, and some insanely delicious Canadian whiskey.
Absolutely. So what we have today is we're trying to answer the question,
The age-old question.
The age-old question of what's the best Canadian whiskey ever?
Ever.
We're gonna determine. We're gonna determine that today with just these two bottles.
So what we have in front of us is pretty incredible. We have the Canadian Club 40-year-old, amazing.
Yeah.
And then the Wiser's 35-year-old. So there is a 5-year age difference there, which, you know, if these were younger, that would make a huge difference. But these are so old. This is older than us.
Yeah, like so these are some of the oldest Canadian whiskey offerings ever.
Yeah.
And that's why we felt it's kind of tongue-in-cheek that we can't really answer the question of what's the best Canadian whiskey ever. But of all the Canadian whiskeys to choose from, these are two great examples, comparable, and like between these two, that's 75 years.
It's amazing.
Of aging.
Yeah, awesome.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to pour one of each, and we're just going to taste them and give our tasting notes, and I think we are going to have to choose which one's the best.
I think that's it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it.
So how about inside glasses for the 35?
Sure.
And we'll go outside glasses for the 40.
Actually, I'm going to grab it. There we go.
And I'll let you do your own here. Sorry about that. We're back. We had the wind blew our camera over, and you know that's the trouble of being on location.
That's what happens when you're in the beautiful nature of the world instead of your dingy garage.
That's right.
Okay.
You mean the studio?
I mean the studio. I'm gonna pour this Canadian Club 40, and one thing I noticed as I was picking this up, like, this is heavy.
Well, I like
the cork is heavy.
I like both of these bottles. Like aesthetically, they're both very nice. I like that they've both got the square thing going on.
Yeah, you can stack these pretty easily.
But this one's a little more fancy. It's got the little
the rope
thing going on. A little bit of the kind of gold here, gold labeling, the big heavy stopper.
It almost looks like it's kind of like creased in the glass.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kind of cool.
But yeah, and this is just like the classic new Wiser's style,
which I really like.
I think it's great.
Okay, so on the inside we got the Wiser's 35-year-old, and on the outsides we have the Canadian Club 40. So just on color alone, these are kind of different colors.
Yeah.
I think the Wiser's.
Yeah. The Wiser's a lot darker.
It's quite a lot darker. I don't know if you guys can see that properly, but okay. So let's get to the nose. What are you smelling first?
I'm into the Wiser's, but I'm gonna let it I'm gonna get on the glass. I mean, we know these two whiskeys like fairly well, but we've never side by sided them to actually kind of compare them.
Yeah.
We've always tasted them on their own. And on their own merits, they're both very good.
And yeah, they are different, significantly different from each other.
You know what's interesting?
So it's really, I think it's going to come down to just personal taste with this.
There's a bit of sediment in the bottom of that bottle.
Oh yeah.
I think Dr. Don had mentioned that this is unfiltered.
Right.
The Canadian Club, it looks to be the same. Looks to be unfiltered as well.
I'm getting, I mean, again, out in nature, you get the wind blowing, and it completely changes the dynamic of what you normally smell. It's not necessarily concentrating the smells like into that.
Well, I'm getting obviously the corn notes. This is like the Wiser's ones. The majority of it is corn, but there's also the spicy rye notes.
There's some spicy rye notes and just spices in general, like a little bit of cloviness.
And a nice sweetness to it as well.
Nice sweetness, for sure. little vanillas. It's quite soft, you know, and it's not
Mhm.
super oaky that you might expect
Yeah.
for something that's been in a barrel for 35 years.
Yeah, very good.
Very well rounded.
Okay, let's nose this Canadian Club one.
Now, I'm not 100% sure about this Canadian Club when it comes to grains and everything, but it smells quite corny.
It smells, I would say it's exclusively corny.
Yeah.
Like it has a sweetness, but it has that signature Canadian corn, which is different than when you think of like a bourbon.
But,
right?
Yeah, and I gotta say too, though, Canadian Club sometimes, I mean, both of these whiskeys have their very specific profiles
Right.
about them. And this Canadian Club is different in the sense that it's not just like that typical Canadian Club smell. There's a little bit more depth, a little bit more going on. It's almost slightly floral in a weird way.
I was gonna say it almost has a bit of like a plastic note to it,
Yeah, for sure.
and the corn can kind of do that sometimes. Well, should we sip some of these things?
Yeah, let's get to, what's the percentages on these?
Oh, sorry, the Canadian Club here, 45%.
Okay, and this is 50%.
Okay.
So, relatively comparable.
And price-wise, I think they're also very comparable. They're
Mhm.
both in that little over $200 kind of range.
Which is crazy if you think about for a 40-year-old whiskey.
$200.
35-year-old whiskey. Like, you won't get that for Scotch.
No, you're gonna
No.
pay between $1,000 and several $1,000s for
Yeah.
a 40-year-old Scotch.
Absolutely.
And like, a regular person can actually afford to buy this.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like
it's still an expensive bottle, but
But it's a luxury that some people can afford,
Yeah.
you know? Okay, I'm going to start with the Canadian Club
Okay.
just because it's lower percentage alcohol.
okay, let's get into it.
All right.
It has a nice kind of like softness to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very drinkable.
It's the viscosity of it is nice and silky, I find, with this one.
And it has like sweet arrival to it.
Yeah.
It definitely has strong corn characteristic,
Mm-hmm. There's
which is like that I always kind of like to compare it to like almost like corn syrup,
yeah.
you know.
Well, it's
but not that sweet, of course.
not
but-
that sweet, but this does have a really nice like trickle of sweetness throughout the whole thing.
Mhm.
40 years old. It's amazing. Some people say you should be holding it in your mouth for however
That
old
many
it is.
seconds.
So we'd be sitting here for 40 seconds,
Mm.
which I'm not going to do.
No. No.
Mm.
And it does have a little bit of heat on the finish.
Yeah,
Like, it
and I
finishes
can't-
a little bit hot. And
I
with
can't
a-
tell if that's the alcohol or if it's an actual like
a
spiciness
yeah.
from like something other than corn, but it doesn't seem like there's anything else but corn. So
Yeah.
it could be the actual heat of the alcohol,
But it does
which
have
is
a
kind of weird
warming
for
effect.
45%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we hop into the Wisers here?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm gonna smell it one more time.
Mhm.
Give myself a little bit more of a
Get your nose buds going.
get my chance to get the differences going.
Yeah, these are very distinctly different.
Yeah, this
Noses,
like
for
the
sure.
nose on this is way spicier and more kind of like rye notes to it.
There's a little bit more going on with the Wisers.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, let's try it. Mm.
Definitely a lot more rye.
A lot more rye, but you know, for 50%, I feel like it's less heat.
Yeah, this one almost seems a little hotter at 45.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
There's a lot of flavors going on in this Weiser's 35. Like there are everything we mentioned before, the spices, the vanillas, a little bit of cloviness. The corn notes are there, the rye spices are there.
But it's very, very balanced with a little bit of like a char on the finish even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not, again, for these being in barrels for so long, they're not over potent with the barrel taste, but it seems like they settled quite nicely into the barrels, you know?
I'm just switching back now.
Okay. Mm.
This one's almost like a little bit
It's nice too.
creamier and
Mm-hmm.
like softer notes like the vanillas.
Yeah.
Whereas this has
Like the viscosity I find on the Canadian Club I'm liking better. It's like really silky and smooth,
Mhm.
but maybe the flavor I'm liking a little bit more on the Wisers.
Yeah.
If the Wisers had that characteristic. You know, they're both excellent. So having to determine which one is better is, I mean, again, poor us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But who better to choose than us?
Exactly.
Couple of Canadians on location drinking
In
a
Canada.
couple of Canadians.
Yeah. On location in Canada.
Yeah, this one has like even a mild like toffee kind of thing going on,
Yeah, a little caramelly.
which Canadian whiskey in general does well.
Yeah.
Switch.
Nice. Okay, let's go to the Wisers again.
This one's just more.
It's just more complex to me.
Yeah, there's more dynamic. It's
Yeah.
more robust and like there's more happening, and I think that's because there's more of a heavier rye presence.
And it's also like a little bit more drying on the finish, which
Yeah.
is kind of nice. It's like when you know, the difference between like a really light red wine and a big busty, robusty you know, one with legs, that kind of thing.
Busty with legs?
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah,
Sounds good.
yeah.
I'll have that.
Well, that's what this one kind of reminds me of, and how can you say no to that?
You can't.
It's
I never do.
impossible. Yeah.
Very good. I just put my arm in some sap. Yeah.
Asaptual.
So that's again another problem with being on location here.
Yeah.
That's gonna
And I just dipped my arm in maple syrup. What the?
Oh, these
Hey,
pancakes.
a moose. Oh man. Okay, so I
Okay.
think we kind
Okay,
of probably both agree. I'm
Okay,
assuming.
I'm gonna give you your scenario.
Oh sure.
Both of these bottles are dangling over a cliff,
Mm.
and you've got your hand on a branch, and you only have one free hand. You can only grab one bottle and save it from falling over the cliff.
I think I'm gonna be saving the busty,
Robusty?
robusty with legs.
Which one was that?
The Wiser's 35. I think that's
I
my.
think that's a good choice.
Okay, my scenario was.
Oh,
Okay, picture yourself. You're sitting in Canada on location.
right,
You got two bottles in front of you.
right,
You're outdoors.
right.
You get to choose just one.
Which one is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Less dramatic, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
more
it's kinda-
realistic.
It's kind of a nice scenario.
More of a realistic scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we've kind of determined that
The best Canadian whiskey ever
ever of all time.
is Wiser's 35-year-old.
Wow.
Wow, there you have it.
We just genuinely think, and I think most people would try them side by side and probably agree. You know,
Well, I mean, both
totally different flavor profiles.
and
So
both
it's what
of
you're
these,
into, but
both of these are like award-winning
oh yeah,
whiskeys, right? So a lot of people would probably swing the other way, and that's fine.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like they're both really good. We're just saying, for our tastes today here,
yeah.
we're both choosing that one.
Wiser's 35.
It's nice that we've finally gotten away from having a split decision. We've had a few of those recently.
Yeah, I'm loving this Wiser's 35, and actually I just had a sip of this Canadian Club 40, and man, it's good too.
For
They're
sure.
great. They're both great.
Positive problem
But that one moves forward
into the next round.
into the
or
next round of I guess if we ever get another like
You know what?
high
Canadian
age
Club
statement.
41.
Ooh,
We'll
yeah.
have to try that next.
Canadian Club 41's coming out, and then next year I believe the Wiser's 23.
Yeah, it's changed. It's going backwards.
It's going backwards, but that's not to say it's going to be worse.
No, not at all.
All right, 23 years is quite an old whiskey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys for joining us.
Hopefully, you could actually hear some of this.
Yeah,
it wasn't just
it's
wind
not
whipped.
just to whistle and wind.
Yeah.
So check us out. Subscribe.
Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays.
Yeah,
And live streams on Wednesdays.
yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Cheers.
All right.
Penny and C, drinking whiskey, describing all the flavors for you and me. Irish, Scotch, bourbon, and rye. If they like a bottle, they'll tell you why.